Oh man.
So could be good. Where we want to.
Okay.
Sorry, I was thinking too. At least we know it works. Really want to try again?
Hello, hello. Better?
Yeah, so I think it's also coming there. So the ceiling. The ceiling is talking to us. Sorry about that.
Do we want to fix that or?
Yeah, see.
Okay.
It's fixed. I think it's
Fixed. All right.
okay. We'll try again.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Caleb Queern. It's really nice to meet everybody. We're going to do something a little different today. I don't plan on talking about AI at all. I hope that might be nice. Might be nice. Sometimes I feel like this isn't like hardcore security enough, but I feel like when I think about the CIA triad and availability is one of the three, I feel better about this stuff. And I think it'll be, like I said, a little bit of a palate cleanser from some of our normal AI overload and important. So I hope everybody has a good time. Let me see if I can get this. So this is another picture of me. Mark found a good one online earlier, but it's really nice to be here. This is a famous OWASP chapter, everybody. If you weren't aware, this is a real honor to be here with you. This is one of the oldest with some of the highest firepower, I think, in many of the chapters out there. So if you didn't feel it already, I hope you feel good about hanging out here. I have to indulge myself. I was telling Cam earlier here that I haven't been to a single chapter meeting in Austin before, despite living here 10 years. I haven't even been to AlasCon, despite living here 10 years. It's embarrassing and unacceptable. However, I know everybody's like nodding at me right now, but I have a little bit of street cred because I'm going to do this on camera. I helped used to run the OWASP chapter in San Diego. So I feel like I get a little bit of a pass. So let's dive in. By the way, when we talk about the agenda and the time we'll spend together today, I want your permission. How much time do we have, Mark? Like, and 3 hours? Like how long? 1 hour total.
45 minutes.
45 minutes. All right. So depending on how well behaved this room is, everybody, we may get to a demo at the end, which 50% chance it goes well, but we'll see. Okay. But feel free to ask questions, jump in. I don't think I'm going to see any questions that come online. So if there are somebody in the room, let me know that there's a question and Mark's watching. Okay. Cool. That's going to distract me pretty bad. Here we go. Next slide. So, and also forgive me, I'm used to walking around and waving my hands all over. This is going to be very hard for me. Maybe I'll carry my laptop around. So it's the 250th anniversary of our country. So I couldn't not show a slide that depicts maybe a little bit of what communications looked like back then. We were organizing for a pretty important moment. Maybe that's Sam Adams on the printing press over there. I don't know. But you had some maps and maybe a horse would take a message somewhere. This slide really isn't very relevant to the talk, except I couldn't not do it because it's, the 250th anniversary. So moving on, let's speed way ahead. Has anybody in the room or online ever heard of Autobahn? Nobody? So there was a system built at the height of the Cold War to help make sure that important communications made it from where they started to where they needed to get in the event of a really bad day for our country. This was essentially the defense network. Today, looking back, it's not very sophisticated. This is, telephony was, I don't know how far it had penetrated the United States at that time, but pretty robust. Phones were where they needed to be. But in the event of a disaster, maybe the network would get flooded. Maybe the important calls that needed to get from somewhere didn't. So the innovation around Audubon was simply that the folks around our nuclear preparedness and reaction, those calls would get prioritized. At the time, that was crazy. Like there was nothing to have done that prior. So this is a big leap forward for crisis moment communications. Let's scoop ahead to ARPANET. I think folks in the room have heard of ARPANET. I see some heads nodding. By the way, I need to show the room what a good looking audience. Look at that's incredible. Good looking group. We get some heads nodding. They know what ARPANET is. Everybody knows what ARPANET is. It's the predecessor to the modern internet with roots in the defense complex back in the day, but really has very little in common with what we experience today as the internet. Keep moving. But this brings us to today. What do we got? In modern telecommunications, we've got like APIs, we've got rich web clients, we've got cloud computing, we've got AI, et cetera. It's a much different picture pretty quickly. But this assumes, and that's the key word, a lot of network capacity, almost infinitely available in terms of like quality and quantity of bandwidth. But let's play a game. Shall we play a game? Does anybody remember that quote? I got some more heads nodding. Let's plot those prior slides on here. Which of those different examples of technology and innovation would go in which of these squares? I'm not going to go one by one. I'll just reveal. We've got something that is highly survivable up in the upper left with Autobahn, and almost no bandwidth is required for that. I mean, it's comically low bandwidth to run that. But the bad news, and maybe the spirit behind this presentation, is the reality on the lower half of this slide, which is that everything else is not very survivable in the event of a very bad day. Yeah. So any questions or big heartburn with what I've shared so far? Yes, sir.
A very bad day, do you mean like just the internet? Like some sort of devastating cyber attack to the entire web?
What a great question. I don't know if folks online could hear that, but he's asking me to clarify what I mean by a bad day. And here's what I have in mind when I'm talking about this. And maybe it's the result of a natural disaster. Maybe it's conflict. Use your imagination, but something that makes it so bad that it's not zero network, but it's not what we enjoy today. That's the type of thing I want to help all of us in the room and all of us online start planning for, which is, can the platforms that we build as AppSec engineers work in the event of these situations? So all of the above is the answer to my question.
Why would you say that the current modern internet is less survivable? Because we build with high availability in mind, most anyways.
Great question from Josh for those online who didn't hear it. Josh challenges the assumption or the premise that we have a lot of bandwidth. We design with redundancy and all this extra capacity in mind. Stand by. Here we go. And at the end, you can let me know if you still disagree, and that's fine too. So I'm going to walk you through a few examples of why I think this is something to think about. If you've seen the maps of the planet and all of the rat's nest of cables that underlie, go across the oceans, there's a lot of disagreement about how much that matters because a lot of traffic is regional or, intra-country. But the point is, it's fragile and vulnerable. I would suggest that no matter what fundamental infrastructure we're talking about that powers our daily experiences online, and that's data centers, satellites, subsea cables, every single one of those is absolutely exposed and vulnerable and impossible to protect. So we've got 200 cables a year that are reported to have been at least disrupted. And some of these are accidents, some of these not so accidents, but it's a thing. It's not a thing, okay? Next slide. This is a quote from a senator, Senator Maria Cantwell. This is from November or so, that the Chinese government is it's firmly established that they have deep roots in some or enough of our networks are critical telecom providers that we need to really start doing a better job paying attention to this. So we talked about subsea cables. We talked about our telcos in the United States. And this is Ukraine. And this data is from the International Telecommunications Union. In the first year, this data came out of the first year. They published a paper of the effect of conflict on their telecoms infrastructure. Obviously, the United States is not Ukraine, like it's a much different picture. But again, it's not a target. 20%, like 1 out of 5 pipes, if you will, or whatever kind of metaphor you want to use, it was just damaged or destroyed. And what type of impact would that have on our lives here in the United States? And perhaps we have enough bandwidth and redundancy left over to accommodate this, but I'm not always sure. And this is a recent quote from CISA. They have a new initiative called CI, which is basically around preparing for moments like I'm talking about. And bold is the important part, as you can imagine. We should just go ahead and assume that telecoms will be unreliable. And I think the word unreliable is real important because, we can, kind of nerd out about what we mean here. Is it too much latency? Is it lower bandwidth? Is it, I don't care. I don't care. The point is whatever we're expecting and assuming is around today is not, we can't assume that. Okay, so let's see. Next slide. So if there's plenty of evidence to assume that the network may be impacted, whether natural disaster or in a conflict, has anybody heard, this is a sincere question for the audience, has anybody heard of folks talking about how to mitigate the impact of a moment like this? Not the likelihood, but the impact of this. I mean, we can, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, we can think of a bunch of cool engineering ways to do so. But this is a sincere question. Has anybody heard of like guidance around? Not enough. Thank you. What was your name? Griff. My favorite guy in the room. Okay. Best looking as well. So, okay, he's married. So maybe this is an idea. Maybe we just need more bandwidth, everybody. And that could be helpful. But I have some ideas that make me feel like it may not be enough. And here's what I mean. So on this chart, we've got some data around how much global fiber and global like total bits per second exist on the web. This isn't bits. This is a much higher scale. But the point is, again, like, wow, we're swimming. We're flooded with internet bandwidth.
Does this include dark fiber?
Yes.
What's online?
This is dark. It's supposed to be everything. Great question. The question was, is this dark fiber or lit fiber? And I think it's everything.
My exception to the definition of dark fiber is fiber that is not necessarily currently in use or is not on the public internet.
Cool. But maybe if you're in Austin, we have a familiar experience of what happens when you build more lanes on a highway. Lo and behold, more cars seem to fill the highway. And the benefit of that extra capacity is not what we expected or hoped. So let me grab this. I have a prop. Anybody in the room familiar with the Web Almanac? Anybody ever heard of the Web Almanac? No? No. So the Web Almanac is an annual project that scans the content, the technologies of the internet, and lets us know what's in place, what's not, like what trends and tech and security are changing online. And here's a chart that makes me feel a little bit like we have a lot more cars entering the highway over time. It's not a surprise. We're building to an equilibrium where we can get the max content on a page that doesn't necessarily among like when we're flush with bandwidth, it's not too much of a burden on the pipes and the user to experience what we intend. We're going to keep flooding these browsers with like bigger JavaScript files, more media, more rich, robust, modern experiences, more advertising. That's right, Griff. Thank you.
More malware.
More malware perhaps as well. There was a question in the back.
Just one comment, there was a study that came out within the last couple months, I believe, that basically showed that the average web page size now is about 49 megabytes. That includes all of the tracking and ads and JavaScript and, you know, the things that they do for canvas tracking and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. And so it was basically analysis saying there's a reason why people are stopping to go to web pages is because you have this extreme growth of just the page size. You don't have lightweight pages in
What was your name?
Evan.
Evan. Thank you so much. So for those online, Evan commented that he heard a stat that the average web page may be 49 megabytes or something like by now. Whatever it is, it's a lot, probably more than we expect while we're out and about, or maybe even building and helping devs build their systems and apps for our users. There's not a lot of folks thinking about how to constrain that. Anyways, by the way, before I go to the next slide, anybody want to wager or guess how many requests come from a browser on average for a new navigation to a site they've never been to before? How many, Griff? Anybody want to guess?
1,000.
I can't read that online. What does that say? Two. You guys, two. You guys are okay. I set you guys up too bad. It's not 1,000. It's not 450.
Come on, it seems like it.
At least according to the Almanac data from a couple of years ago. Oh, what was your name? Kevin. Kevin says 42. That's pretty close. This is median. Okay. There could be a lot more, could be a lot less. But that's a lot of requests. And it feels, I don't know everybody, but it feels awfully fragile to me that we assume that the browser is going to have this much room to play just to load a normal page online.
Does that include DNS? Or is this only content page?
This includes DNS. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know how much of a percentage that would add, but yeah, I think it is DNS.
You can almost double it because, you know, it would double because every page you want to load from a different domain is going to end up being a DNS request as well.
It says HTTP request, DNS
Yeah.
would be a
Yeah,
different
so
site.
that looks like that doesn't include.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most sites, when you load them up, it's CSS is a thing, JavaScript is a thing, images is a thing, so it's all the content.
So
that's on it.
effectively, probably close to double this for with including DNS requests.
Whatever the number is more than we expect. I think we're probably unanimous on that. So I guess that's the part about, just build more bandwidth. I guess I would counter to that and say, I mean, maybe, but on the other hand, we're just going to go consume all of that as much as we can as well too. So here we go. What if we were to make our websites more efficient? That sounds like a good idea. I think my next slide suggests, oh yeah, I'm not going to show that yet. I need to tell a story. So can anybody remember, like, what's the most recent big crisis that we all globally experienced together? COVID. Okay. And so what I did, I don't know how I had the foresight to do this or something got in me. Is anybody in the room familiar with Google PageSpeed Insights? So Google PageSpeed Insights, you can go to this site and you enter a URL and it's going to go scan it and it's going to be a report card from 0 to 100. And 100 is great, extremely performant, buttery experience. 100 or 0 is obviously miserable. And so what I did at the height of COVID, it was like 2021, I found the US state website for COVID for all 50 states. So these are important resources that deliver perhaps life-altering, like health-impacting resources for where you can get vaccines or some sort of help. Who cares what it is? And I'll show you what happened. Like, here's the scores across all 50 states. And this is, when people say, oh, we'll just get better at making our websites more efficient. I say, again, we have evidence to suggest this isn't something we have a muscle around. And this is information that it's not, I don't know, it's not like the app in the cafeteria that tells you the menu. This is potentially life or death impacting information. And this is how we did it in a moment where it mattered most. I always get a question. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, Mark's giving me a hard time about the two green states. And they say, how could that be? That's probably a different talk. I don't want to get into that.
In theory, those sites were all just thrown up kind of ad hoc to address an issue that was just kind of sprung on us. And that's what I would expect from that. Like SEO is earned, it's not like built, right? I just spent 2 weeks doing SEO on the Simplest website, so I know like that 90 to 100 number, that's really difficult to achieve.
Josh makes a good point that 90 to 100 is hard.
Ranking.
Okay,
It has to
guy.
be done. So this is not a ranking thing. This is based on performance of the site. So it's, you know, are you caching things?
Right.
It's how small are your image files? It's how do you load JavaScript? Are things being delayed for the page to load before you load them up? Like that's not an easy number to achieve.
For most people, it takes some work.
Yeah.
Josh makes a fair point that it's not easy to get 90 to 100. Yet I think we would all still like and expect better than what we see here. Okay. Next page. Here's an idea. Like, what if there's an insult to the network? We just get really good at like patching it real fast. And I don't mean patch and like, you know, deploy a new image. I'm talking about like going out and fixing fiber in the field or whatever would remedy the actual insult to the network. Maybe we just get so good at that. And I would say, well, you know, we kind of have a little bit of that muscle. Anybody heard of FirstNet? What's FirstNet, Kevin? Yes. Yes. So, yep, I hear whispers in the room, and Kevin shared. FirstNet is a contract currently held by AT&T, if I'm not mistaken. It's like a 25-year contract, but basically enables the modern version of that Autovon stuff I was talking about before, where you get first responders who it ensures that they can stand up a quick network in the event of a crisis, maybe in hours or a day, but those folks can communicate. That's great, but that doesn't solve our societal problem of our communities, like, you know, Griff's mom, you know, my aunt, like that doesn't help the rest of us. This helps a very small and important group, but there's no plan for the broader society for a moment like this. And by the way, let's say you do have FirstNet. Folks are familiar with the hurricanes. Was it Helena who struck North Carolina? I mean, among other spots recently.
Issue because it's based on the cell network. If you don't have cell coverage, FirstNet doesn't do you any good.
They stand up miniature cell towers, but the point is it's still not enough. Kevin's right. So let me refer real quickly to a story from Hurricane Helene. In North Carolina, that was, I mean, folks may have seen the only way that those people had to communicate in a moment where it did matter, life and death. Their best way, they didn't ascend. They just received over AM radio sometimes. And forget your mesh tastics, which we may talk about later and other stuff, but ham radio.
Volunteer.
Evan's pointing out that they also used ham. Those are cool, but honest, I'm not sure it's like a society scale solution for us here. Okay. So team, let me add one more thing about this moment. The North Carolina government, I think it was like a $30 million funding to repair and restore the infrastructure that was taken offline during this. That was in November. More than a year later, they're not upgrading the network. They're just putting it back to what it may have been before 1 year later. So I guess I continue to believe we haven't thought all of this through. All right, how are we doing on time? 12:30. I'm going to speed it up. Yeah, this is how I feel after all of this, but I think maybe there's hope. Okay. So has anybody ever heard of DDIL? Some people use different language for it, but this is and by some people, I mean different branches of the military. You can expect, I mean, they're planning for hostile environments where the network is not only maybe tough or austere, but actually contested. And you may have adversaries actively trying to jam the communication. So anyways, I'm not going to nerd out about that. The point is they have language to describe moments like this. And they, in the past, I'll call it 10 years, you'll start seeing this acronym or something like it in procurement requests so that their suppliers start building requirements or at least building to the spirit of this stuff. I have yet to find a definition of DDIL or what it means to meet some expectations around this. Maybe that's on purpose. You know, maybe just nobody's written down. I don't know. but at least there's a name for this. We don't have that in non-military circles. So that gives me a little bit of hope, though. Some people are thinking about this. And here's another bit of inspiration for me. Has anybody either been to like text.npr.org or light.cnn.com? If you haven't, that's okay. You get the idea from the screenshots. You can imagine, like I've done the actual in DevTools. I think it was in Chrome I did this. I compared the total data sent. That's the important word, sent, because after you decompress something, it's a lot more data. But the sent for CNN.com and NPR.org for both of those regular sites and compared it to what we see on the screen. Evan, what percent less is this experience than the normal websites?
I would guess that it's probably close to 100 to 1.
Right. Evan, that's so close. 99.9% less bandwidth to deliver what we have on the screen here today compared to the normal sites we're all used to. That makes me think we may be onto something there. And nobody's suggesting that this should be how the web looks, but perhaps that's some inspiration for moments in crisis. And by the way, I can share maybe a link later. I don't know how I'll get it to everybody, but maybe through Mark. But I found this really cool talk. It's tragic, and I got really emotional listening to it. But the guys behind CNN.com on September 11th talked about their experience keeping CNN.com online as the planes hit. And the whole planet went to CNN.com. That's not the moment I'm trying to engineer for or get us thinking about here, but it is instructive in helping us consider in moments where the network is not what we expect, ways to ensure that our content gets to where it needs to be. And I'm pretty convinced that what we see on the screen here may be a result of experiences like that other people haven't had. Okay, let me keep going. Maybe this is a place to start. Like, who has a role in thinking about all of this? Yes, sir.
Babysitting infrastructure and REITs, primarily having to think about what to do with upstream fibers burned in California and all your diverse routes go with it.
But who's a stakeholder group that would be involved?
The core network teams that need to,
Core network teams, like at big telco providers?
or people that have reliable data on the net somewhere.
Okay. Good. What was your name?
John.
John. Okay. John says telco and big, like kind of large organizations maybe can start thinking about this. I have a table. I'll save us some thinking. I think everybody on here, and there's probably folks I've missed, might have a role. And again, I want to be real clear. I'm not talking about lessening the likelihood of moments like this. I'm talking about lessening the impact of moments like this. And I think everybody on this list could have something to contribute. And maybe this starts to turn into a table where the next column is, what are those things, the top 3 things that each of these groups could do? I'm going to pause real quick for an audience check-in. Cameron, have I missed anything or said anything crazy? I have missed stuff and I've said crazy stuff. What have I missed and what's crazy?
I'm not walking away with what am I supposed to do?
Oh, okay. I haven't gotten to what you should do. Let's go there.
We need to put your number 9 on.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't say DevSec.
Yes, ma'am.
anywhere on here. I'm not a YouTube.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. What was her name? Norma. Norma said maybe small or medium organizations deserve to be on this list too. That's a great point. Let's explore some of these, okay? And Cam makes a good challenge to me. He says, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, I want to walk away with something, and let's get into that. So I kind of got fed up. You can tell I'm a little fired up about this stuff. And I said, there must be a standard out there. If you go to like W3C, IETF, I don't care what standards body, has anybody has gone on and written something that would, maybe be useful in preparing for moments like this? And the answer, as far as I can tell in my conversations with guys on standards bodies, they said no. They're all writing for how to make the most of a web that's always available. So I said, screw it. I'm going to take a stab at this. There's a link in the lower left if anybody wants to explore it, where it's a little bit more fleshed out. You can play around with some of the recommendations there. You can disagree completely. That's fine too. But at least I'd like to believe there's a start of what good looks like, so you don't need to go make it up as you go. And this, I'm not going to read it, obviously. I'm not even going to visit the link. But the spirit of this is that basically, what does it take to deliver that CNN or light.cnn.com or text.cnn or text.npr.org? This is a recipe for doing that. That's right. Get people thinking about it. Thank you, Griff. So basically, it strips everything down. It's a single request to load the content. Single request. And probably 1% of what it would normally take to get your content through. So please give that a check. Go check that out. Slim. Next up, I want to show, you say, what percent of the web is WordPress, everybody? 42%. John was very, very like suspicious. John was suspiciously suspiciously specific about that. Any other guesses before I keep moving? Cam is goofing around. He said 70%. He knows it's not 70%. It's and the data that I've seen over the past couple of years, it's around 35, almost 40% of the web is WordPress, which is pretty crazy, but that's what the data shows. And so what if there was an easy button? So you don't have to go do all the work and read that slim spec that some guy in Austin just threw together. You can just enable this. And so lo and behold, there is a WordPress plugin that we may demo later if I still have time at the end of this to show you what it does in real life. And you may explore that. I think it's exciting that more than 3,500 .gov websites are on WordPress, for better or worse. But perhaps they could explore using a plugin like this, even a different one, a better one that delivers this experience we're talking about. As you can see on the left, you have, you know, an arguably rich website with an image and some fonts and CSS and all this stuff. And once you use the plugin, it turns it to the stuff on the right with a click. That sounds interesting. And I hope it's useful to folks. So another nice thing, speaking of users and other groups and stakeholders on that table I talked about, it would be nice perhaps if there was a way, maybe it was laminated inside your cupboard for your mom or me or whoever in a moment like this, if you knew exactly what to do quickly to make your phone work with less data. And so here's another link that I think might be useful, some takeaways to go explore and play around with at this bad network mode page. It's just as ugly as you see on the right, but it's almost guaranteed to get where it needs to go in a moment like this. And hopefully with these instructions, users can do the same on their devices. Yes, sir.
Browser, like, same thing.
What was your name?
Casey.
Casey asks a very good question, everybody. Casey wants to know if reader mode on your phone would do the same thing as this bad network mode. Others can disagree if I get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure the reader mode is after it's already pulled down the whole page, then it turns it into the reader, like the light looking mode, but it's already sucked in all that content. So probably not what we're looking for in this moment. Okay, let's see. Here, let's go back to the table. I would like to think that of all of the stakeholders on this table, some people have a bigger role than others in how this could get better and play out. And Cameron and everybody in the room, I do have some homework for people, but I would like to see maybe folks in row number 3 here in these different agencies consider more of a focus on this. And I can share. So I think it was about 2 weeks ago now that I was in Washington, D.C. at an event called Critical Effect. If anybody knows the Institute for Security and Technology, folks in the room, I'm guessing must know Josh Corman and I Am the Cavalry, that whole crew, and others like Bryce Bortson. Anyways, who cares? I was at this event in DC and I gave a pretty similar conversation or presentation. CISA was there because CISA was also presenting in the room. And CISA apparently appreciated this. They said nobody's working on this exactly right now. Maybe they'd like to change that. They've got other things like water and power, but on the list should be this. And so anyways, my suggestion is that folks in these maybe do some modeling and simulations on some regular basis of what this part of our experience would be like in a crisis. Before I keep going, we've got about, Mark, 19 minutes left at most. 10 minutes. Okay. So Anything from the audience before we, yes, sir.
My name's Steve. So I do have a couple of questions, or thoughts. So in the event of like a catastrophe for like the network cabling, there's obviously like no power, which takes out the cell towers for phones. So you really got no option with this mode. We don't have any power, so the cell towers are down. So it doesn't matter if you have this or not. But you've not really touched on the kind of new thing that's being put into phones for like satellite communications.
Oh, Mark, right? Steve, thank you, Steve. Steve makes a couple of good points. He says, I didn't really talk about the dependency on power before any of this. For any of this to work at all, we need juice. Number two, where's the
Like, maybe we could cover the satellite stuff.
so then the second comment was around satellites and how those can help in a moment like this. Great point. I would suggest, I'll tell you a quick story. That may address some of your question. I have some acquaintances who may be in manufacturing, big factories, big factories. You know, if that line stops, it's millions of dollars stopping. Okay. And guess what? One day the network went down and they said, oh my God, they go out and they find that some copper thieves had been going after the copper and the cables. So they patched that up. 7 days later, the copper, like the network's down again. Lo and behold, the thieves had come back and just gone after the copper again. So they patched that up. And guess what they did? They went and got a second provider so that they could toggle over in the event that one was affected. So that's a good start, I guess. I'm not sure they had physical egress like that was different, but they said, oh, in addition to that, we're going to go to Starlink, everybody. We're going to throw a Starlink on top of the factory. And I think you can't not do that probably, or something like a Starlink. But in a moment where we're all affected, I wonder if everybody who's got a Starlink toggles over to Starlink. The Starlink's not very available anymore, for very long at least.
Yeah.
Yes, Mark. Or Kyle.
Yeah, says maybe content delivery networks like Cloudflare can have as part of their caching ability to render to slim content if it detects network issues.
Whose suggestion was that?
That was my Tiana online.
Tiana. Wow, that was really nice. I'll try to recap for those who maybe didn't hear. Tiana suggested, actually, she wrote it online. Everybody can see it online. I don't need to repeat it. Nice one. Yeah, that's why content delivery networks are on the list. Thank you, Tiana. Okay. I think I'm going to gamble and try to do a demo real quick of that Slim plugin. Bear with me while I goof up like what I'm sharing here. Okay, so maybe you saw on an early screen that I am a co-founder of this thing called the Texas Cyber Alliance. Guess what it's running on? WordPress. Okay, so I will demonstrate, I hope, the plugin of what looks like normal and then what it looks like when you toggle on Slim. Okay. Well, let's see if I can get this right. Escape. I cannot see. Thank you, Cam. Okay. Hey, by the way, actually, let me do this real fast. Can anybody like scan this or go to the website? We'll do this live together. You can experience this on your own phone, Cameron. It is sus. It is a sus. Gee, I want everybody to scan this code right now.
Yeah.
Urgently. You gotta scan this. But I hope this takes you to texascyberalliance.org so you get the real website, and then we're gonna toggle it over to Slim live, I hope, and you'll see the difference. Okay. I see a few people in the room have brought up the site that worked.
It's legit, I vouch for it.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Vouches for Texas Cyber Alliance. I'll send him a check later. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my WordPress admin page. I'll go over here to my slim low bandwidth mode. Oh man, this is so easy. Who designed this? This is great. I'm gonna click that, render it all as slim. Yep. Save changes. Is Dwayne giving me a hard time? I can't.
Has been asking for my friend.
Okay, so now magically refresh.
Wow, it looks so much better.
Amazing. Amazing. It looks like crap, but I bet it gets through in a crisis. So
But it was already very compared to the line.
Thank you. A lot of applause in the room. That was great. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna run through PageSpeed Insights.
Please. Oh, Josh, I've got another troublemaker who wants to go test PageSpeed Insights. Well, it should be in green before and after, Josh, just to,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Think I'm about to be shown my way out of the room here. Couple minutes left. Thanks everybody very much. That was what I wanted folks to think about and consider as AppSec team members and nearby adjacent talent. I guess my ask would be consider how we might, again, it's not about listening the likelihood of a moment like this. That's beyond our control. But the impact we do have a role in. There's a lot of optimizations that we can start thinking about now. And by the way, like, you work at a large organization. Oh, bring that camera. How many, not in your organization, but in those maybe friends of yours, how many applications are running around that place?
Way too many, let's put it that way.
Are we talking like 50? Are we talking 500? Are we talking thousands?
We're talking thousands.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wonder if in organizations like this one, if there's a prioritized list in large organizations of the apps and systems we most care about, that the business has to keep online in a moment that we're talking about. Top 3 apps. Do you think?
Most
And
likely, yes.
maybe. I don't know how well that,
Activities are definitely prioritized.
I don't know, in many large organizations don't have a list. They probably have some list, but they haven't prioritized or picked the 5 or 3 or whatever that have to go through or the business doesn't exist. So that in advance, we can start using things like Slim or something like it to make sure that our, like Josh was saying, we're using modern protocols, compression, caching, all of the things. So anyways, that's kind of the spirit of what I want folks to walk away with as you go back to your desk job. Maybe ask around and put it in the backlog, maybe assign a summer intern to some of this stuff, but get the gears turning. Yes, Evan.
I would say, keep in mind is that unless you actually are in total control of the framework and the resources that your systems use, you are not even aware of what might be shared infrastructure, because there are often outages on AWS that affect multiple regions and things like that. So you can be in the cloud and be distributed and still be dependent on common infrastructure that you don't realize.
Yeah, Evan just shared a comment about how difficult this is, given how complex modern apps are. I think I summarized right. Okay.
You want to have lots of fun. Think about not even talking about applications.
Yeah.
And Slim, which is a great idea. PQ, PQC,
Oh.
post quantum computing.
Yeah.
That's gonna just the HTTPS connection is over 3 times larger than
The handshake is.
yeah, the handshakes and things
Yeah.
like that. And you're talking all that encryption is actually going to increase just the bandwidth utilization by itself, not counting the applications that are encapsulated inside of it. So that little two terabytes availability, yeah, that's gonna have to go up a lot more just to meet those needs.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. That's it for me. Oh. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing.